Hey guys, and welcome back to an episode of our YouTube channel. If you do like our channel, please like and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss out on any future episodes. Today we're going to discuss, is there such thing as having natural talent, or is it something you can work on over time? So let's get stuck into it. So when we look at some drivers, from day one you can just tell they can pick it up very quickly. They're hitting their apexes, they've got confidence in their braking zones, and they're quite fast compared to the other experienced drivers. And then you look at other end of the spectrum, and you're looking at some drivers, it takes them 4, 6, 8 months to pick up those basic fundamentals that we need. So is there a such thing as some kids can have that natural ability, or is it something that over time with coaching or watching videos that you can pick up on? For me, it took me 2 years to really become competitive. That's not to say that I couldn't drive, it was more that I couldn't put it all together in the one session. So whether that might be that one day I'm hitting the apexes perfectly, then just 2 days later I'm missing the apexes by a foot or so. And my dad's like, what are you doing out there? Now some of the kids that I coach with the business that I run, you see some kids that within the first day they're maybe only 2 seconds off the pace. Now some of the factors why that could be the case is now we've got stickier tyres. So naturally when you have more grip out there, you're going to have a lot more confidence and a lot less spins. Also, when I started back in the 1990s, we only had hydraulic brakes. So you'd go into the braking zone, you'd hit the brake as hard as you can, and it wouldn't really slow down. So the chances are you're going to miss your apexes a lot more, or you're going to run wide, or you're going to have a spin. When they finally do lock, you're going to have that little bit of a spin. So nowadays, it's a lot easier to start off in kart racing with the stickier tyres, also a lot wider racetracks. So again, some of the tracks that we used to race on back in the 1990s and even the early 2000s, 6 to 8, 7.5, 8 meters wide. Now we're looking at some of the tracks, especially in Europe, they're 8 at a minimum and up to 10 meters wide. So again, a lot less steering inputs are required, a lot less mistakes that can occur. So that's why we're seeing a lot of drivers these days get a lot closer to the pace in that first month of driving. Now, what happens if you're a driver that's taking a little bit longer to get up to speed? Now, one of the first areas is going to be hitting our racing lines every single corner. So we know if we're slightly off the line, we're going to lose that grip. And when we don't have the grip, we're going to be sliding more and we can't go around the corners at the same speed as other drivers. So the easiest way that we can try and understand where the racing line is to watch other karts. That gets you a sense on where to drive straight away. So once you've got an idea of watching the more experienced kart racers out there, you can start to visualize where you're going to place your kart on the track that first time you get onto the circuit. Now, the next area where probably the biggest chunk of time can be won or lost is into the braking zones. So when you're starting out, you may have experienced some times where you've hit the brakes a little bit too aggressively and you've locked them up and you've spun out of control. Totally normal, mistakes are going to be made when you're starting out. The way that I like to try and explain it to newcomers is you want to get a sense of how good those brakes actually work. So I recommend trying to slam on the brakes, but when there's no one around you, in the middle of the straight and at a slower speed. What that does is it gets you a bit of a perception on how quick the kart's going to slow down and which way it's sort of going to wiggle around as well. You're going to hit the brakes and it's going to have a little bit of dancing around in the rear of the kart. So then as you start to increase your speed into the braking zones and other karts that are around you, you have a bit more of a sense on what's going to happen into those braking zones. But when you're starting out and you're nervous to use the brakes, your roll time is going to be a lot greater than what the experienced drivers are. They're going to hold the gas down for a lot longer, short and sharp on the brakes, and then back on the accelerator very, very fast. And that's where their time is going to be made up. Now the third area where some kids can pick up a lot faster is actually just using the full width of the racetrack. Now again, when we're starting out, no matter what age we actually are, whether it's 6, 10, 20 years of age, even 35 years of age, we tend to not use all the racetrack. Now, 2 factors that can come into mind are that you don't actually know how wide your kart is compared to the track. So you're giving yourself a little bit of allowance. So if it does go wrong, you always got that safety blanket to the outside of you. So that's probably why you don't use the full width of the track. The other reason why that occurs is because you're not looking far enough around the corner. So if you start to look where you're going to be driving, you can start to get a sense on how much track width there is available to you, and you start to get on the gas nice and early and start to use that track. So start to use some of those key principles on looking further around the racetrack, further ahead of yourself as well, seeing what you're about to drive into, and that will help you out as well. Now, some other kids now who are picking up very fast is because they're playing racing simulators. They're playing the Xbox games, and because those games are becoming so realistic these days, it helps out a lot when newcomers are getting into the kart for the first time. They can basically try and image as if they're basically playing in a game. So it doesn't have the green line of the racing line, and in the braking zone it doesn't have a red line as well. But they get a sense, because the game is so realistic these days, and it almost feels like you're actually sitting on the racetrack itself, that when you jump into a kart for the first time, it definitely helps starting new drivers out. Now, the other thing to take into account is when we're looking for the drivers who are quicker in the first couple of times on the track, is that they've got a lot less scope to improve. So if you're already very, very close to the maximum speed on the track, you haven't got much more to improve before you're on the pace. But when you're a larger chunk off, there's going to be, holding the accelerator down for an extra 2 or 3 meters, or braking a little bit more aggressively into the braking zones, or using a bit more track width. So there's a lot more scope for parents, mechanics or coaches, or even just spectators who are trying to give some advice to the local club members out. A lot more scope for the drivers who are taking a little bit longer to progress. You can find a lot more time a lot quicker as well. And as we know, when you're sort of 5 or 6 seconds off, those 1 second improvements are quite easy to find. When you get into that last 1 second, we're trying to do those 1%ers that little bit better. We're trying to find 1/10 per corner, or even half a tenth per corner, to get that maximum lap time. So one of the most naturally talented drivers that we've seen coming through the ranks is actually a young Australian driver named Oscar Piastri, who's actually flying through the ranks at the moment. So he started his karting career at age of 10, and now he's progressed all the way through European karting, Formula 3 champion, Formula 2 champion, and now a Formula 1 reserve driver. Now, my cousin did a lot of the coaching with Oscar, and he said from day one he was the most naturally gifted driver he's seen. Now, some of the things that helped that was he had good hand-eye coordination. He used to actually race remote control cars. So he had to be switched on because, controlling a remote control car is very, very fast. It's sort of fast-paced. And hitting the right lines and being smooth, it's still the same principles that he can then take into kart racing when he started. Now, another thing is he started at the age of 10 in kart racing. So a little bit older than some of the other drivers who've, said started at 5, like myself, or, 7 or 8. When you're a little bit older, and 10 is still a very, very young age to start kart racing and driving a vehicle on a track, you can understand things a lot better. So if I'm explaining something to a 6-year-old, or I'm explaining something to a 10-year-old kid, you can see the way they pick up things a lot faster when they're slightly older. Another driver that I coached, he must have been around 12 years of age, maybe 13, was Anton De Pasquale. So again, he's now in the Supercar Championship, racing for the Dick Johnson Racing team, and an exceptional kart racer. But again, when I'm explaining things to a 13-year-old at the time, he can grasp it a lot faster. So it's learning how to explain things to a younger driver so they can pick up things, just as quickly as what you are to a slightly older driver as well. So hopefully you guys have got a few tips. If you are taking a little bit longer to get up to speed in your kart racing, that's totally normal. As I said, it took me a good 18 to 24 months before I was being competitive and challenging for podiums. These days, it is a lot easier to get up to speed. We've got simulators, we've got videos and GoPros that you can place onto the karts to read what you're driving. Also, you've got stickier tyres, better brakes, and wider racetracks as well. So these are all key things that are going to help you when you're starting out in kart racing. Remember, ask questions to more experienced racers. They're going to be likely to help you out because they've been in the same position at some point in their career. And if you're a naturally talented driver, straight out the gate, congratulations. It's very, very hard to be in that same position as what you are in. And I wish you guys all the best. If you've liked this episode, please click subscribe to our channel. And also let us know in the comments down below how long you've been kart racing and how long it took you to get your first podium as well. I'm your host, David Serra. Thanks very much for tuning in, and we look forward to seeing you guys next time.